The clock read 11:30 p.m. In the sprawling, minimalist penthouse overlooking the glittering heart of Seoul, John Park sat in a silence so complete it was a physical presence. The only light came from the city itself, a breathtaking panorama of neon Hangul, sleek skyscrapers, and the winding, dark ribbon of the Han River 60 floors below. It was a kingdom he commanded, yet from which he felt utterly disconnected. He was a statue carved from shadow and tension. Dressed in black trousers and a shirt unbuttoned at the throat, the intricate, dark tattoos that swept across his chest and down his arms were just visible in the ambient glow. They were a history written in ink, a story of survival, power, and pain. To the world, he was the feared jockey of the Park Syndicate, a man whose name could silence a room or end a life. His control was absolute, his ruthlessness legendary. But tonight, every ounce of that fearsome focus was narrowed to a single, infuriating point. The empty space where his housekeeper should be. Where was she? His jaw ached from being clenched. For the third Wednesday in a row, Amanda Matthew was late. Not technically, her duties ended hours ago, but in the unspoken, volatile rhythm that had developed between them, she was late for him. For the electric, unbearable moment when she would walk through that door and the entire atmosphere of his sterile fortress would change. He checked his Patek Philippe for the 5th time. His mind, a weapon usually strategizing mergers and territorial disputes, conjured useless, agonizing images. Was she smiling at someone else? Was some fool at her night class offering to walk her to the bus stop? The jealousy was a live wire in his gut, hot and shameful. He'd spent 5 years building an empire on cold logic, burying the part of him that could feel this deeply after a past betrayal had nearly destroyed him. Amanda, with her quiet dignity and unwavering eyes, had dismantled that safety without even trying. The soft, definitive ding of the private elevator pierced the silence. John didn't move. He became part of the darkness, his eyes fixed on the entryway, a predator in his den. The door opened. Amanda stepped inside, a silhouette of graceful efficiency against the hallway light. She was shrugging out of a simple tan coat, her attention on her phone. She looked preoccupied, thoughtful, beautiful. The sight of her, safe and in his space, sent a violent wave of relief through him, which immediately crystallized into sharper, more possessive anger. She took 3 steps before she felt it, the charged, heavy pressure of his gaze. She froze, then slowly turned. Their eyes met across the vast, opulent room. Coming home at this hour, Amanda. His voice was low, a blade wrapped in velvet, but it vibrated with a tension that betrayed him. Amanda's posture straightened, her professional mask sliding into place, though he saw the quick flutter of her pulse at the base of her throat. My work for the day was completed, Mr. Park. My personal time is my own. He rose then, a slow, deliberate uncoiling of his powerful frame. He seemed to grow, to fill the space between them as he crossed the room, his footsteps silent on the polished marble. He stopped far too close, invading the careful distance she always maintained. The scent of her, honey, soap, and night air, clashed with his own of expensive cologne and repressed fury. I asked you a question, he murmured, his dark eyes scanning her face, looking for secrets. Where were you? The library, she said, holding his gaze. Studying. A bitter smile touched his lips. The library. Every Wednesday. Every Friday. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial, dangerous whisper. Do you think I don't notice? Do you think I don't have people who could tell me exactly what page you're reading? The threat hung in the air. Amanda's eyes flashed, not with fear, but with a fiery indignation that thrilled him even as it enraged him. I am your employee, Mr. Park. Not your prisoner. Not your property. The word property struck a chord. He wanted her to be his, in every way, and the desperation of that want terrified him. His control was slipping. He saw the defiance in her, the unbroken spirit that had endured poverty and loss, and he wanted to crush it and worship it in the same breath. Before he could speak, his personal phone buzzed on the table, a specific, urgent tone. Brandy, his second-in-command. Duty called, a stark reminder of the violent world that was his reality. The interruption was a cold slap. He glanced at the phone, then back at her, his internal war raging. The Mafia boss warred with the man. "This isn't over," he stated, his voice once more the cold, impenetrable steel of the syndicate leader. He grabbed his phone and jacket, his gaze pinning her to the spot. "Do not leave. We will finish this conversation when I return." He turned and strode out, the door closing with a heavy finality. Amanda stood alone, the phantom heat of his anger and something else, something raw and hungry, lingering in the air around her. She let out a shaky breath, her hand tightening around the strap of her bag, knowing the storm had only just been delayed. The heavy door clicked shut, sealing Amanda in the vast, silent tomb of luxury. The air still vibrated with John's unspoken accusations. She walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, pressing her forehead against the cool glass, seeing not the dazzling Seoul skyline but her own faint, ghostly reflection superimposed over it. This penthouse was her gilded cage. After her mother's diagnosis, life had become a series of spiraling numbers, medical bills, funeral costs, evaporating savings. The scholarship to Seoul National University was a distant dream, replaced by the crushing reality of survival. The job listing had been a miracle: live-in housekeeper, discretion required, significant compensation. The interview with Brandy, John's sleek and calculating second-in-command, had been chillingly blunt. "You will see things. You will hear things. You will forget them. Your loyalty is to Mr. Park alone. Do you understand?" Desperation had a way of making dangerous terms sound like salvation. She had said yes. The man she met that first day was not the monster she feared. He was something more complex, a devastatingly handsome king encased in ice, his eyes holding a history of storms. He gave her one primary rule, his voice a low, gravelly command that resonated in her bones. "My private office is forbidden. For any reason. Do not cross that threshold." For months, she was a phantom, polishing surfaces that already shone, folding clothes that smelled like him, sandalwood and something darker. She memorized the patterns of his scars, the white lines on his knuckles, the jagged one peeking from his shirt sleeve. And she felt it, the dangerous, electric pull that crackled in the space between them whenever he was near. He'd begun leaving gifts. A velvet box containing diamond studs. A Birkin bag placed at the foot of her bed. Each felt like a violation, a payment for something she hadn't offered. She returned every one, leaving them outside his forbidden office door, her pride the last fortress she wouldn't surrender. Her real solace was in her worn textbooks, in the night classes at the community college in Nowan. On that bus, surrounded by tired students and shift workers, she wasn't a maid in a criminal's employ. She was Amanda Matthews, reclaiming a shred of the future that had been stolen. The elevator's sudden, unexpected ding made her jump. It was too soon for John to return. Brandy stepped out, her heels clicking a precise rhythm on the marble. She was impeccably dressed, her smile as sharp as a blade. "Amanda, Mr. Park is occupied with a business matter. He asked me to check in." Amanda's senses went on high alert. "I'm fine, as you can see. Can I?" Brandy's gaze swept the room, lingering on Amanda's simple tote bag, which held her textbooks. These late nights must be exhausting. All that, studying. She said the word like it was a suspicious activity. "It's admirable, really. Such dedication. Or is it a useful cover?" The accusation was veiled but clear. Amanda's blood ran cold. "My education is personal. It has nothing to do with my work here." "Of course," Brandy purred, walking closer. "But in our line of work, the personal is often a vulnerability. It creates patterns. Predictability." She stopped inches away. "Mr. Park is a powerful man with powerful enemies. It would be a tragedy if someone misinterpreted your patterns. If they thought his quiet, clever housekeeper might be a source of information." The threat was now explicit. Brandy was warning her off, isolating her. "I don't know anything," Amanda stated, her voice steady. "You know him," Brandy corrected softly, her eyes cold. "And that, my dear, might be the most dangerous thing of all." She gave a final, meaningless smile. "Get some rest. Big day tomorrow." As Brandy left, Amanda's heart hammered. This was more than jealousy from John. This was a plot. She waited for the silence to settle, then crept to her bag. She pulled out her financial management textbook, but as she opened it, a small, unfamiliar flash drive fell from the pages and clattered onto the floor. She stared at it, a bolt of pure terror shooting through her. She had never seen it before. Someone had been in her room. Someone was setting her up. For 2 days after John's tense departure, the penthouse was a museum of silence. He was a ghost, leaving before dawn, returning long after midnight. The oppressive weight of their unfinished conversation was replaced by something colder. His absence felt like a verdict. Amanda moved through her routines, the flash drive burning a hole in her mind from its hiding place. She expected a confrontation, a volcanic eruption of his jealousy. Instead, she got ice. On the third evening, as she was preparing a simple dinner she knew he wouldn't eat, he returned. He stood in the kitchen doorway, watching her. He had changed out of his suit into dark, casual clothes that made him look more like the ruthless operative he was rumored to be than the corporate tycoon he pretended to be. A fresh cut, thin and precise, grazed his temple. "You're bleeding," she said before she could stop herself, her hands pausing over the vegetables. He didn't touch the wound. His eyes, dark and utterly fathomless, held hers. "It's nothing." The silence stretched. "You're still here. You told me not to leave." A ghost of something, not a smile, but an acknowledgement, flickered in his gaze. "I did." He stepped into the kitchen, the space shrinking instantly. He didn't ask about her classes. He didn't mention the library. He picked up a knife she had just washed, testing its balance. "Loyalty is a rare currency, Amanda. Rarer than diamonds. It's bought with blood, or fear, or respect," she ventured, her voice quiet. He set the knife down with a soft click. "Respect is earned, and easily broken." He finally looked at her, really looked, and she saw the conflict raging behind his controlled exterior. The man who was moved by her textbook warred with the boss who had been forged in betrayal. "My world isn't one of textbooks and night buses. It's one where kindness is a weakness and trust is a weapon turned against you." "You think I'm a weapon?" she whispered. "I think," he said, stepping so close she could see the faint, healed scar beneath the stubble on his jaw, "that you are the most confusing thing that has ever walked into my life." His confession hung in the air, vulnerable and dangerous. The moment was shattered by the buzz of his secured phone. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor hardened back into impenetrable stone. "I have to go." "John," she said, using his name again, a plea. He paused at the threshold. "Brandy is reviewing some security discrepancies from the penthouse systems. She may have questions for you tomorrow. Answer them." The order was clear, but his eyes held a silent, tortured warning. "Be careful." After he left, the emptiness was louder than before. Security discrepancies. The flash drive. Brandy was making her move, not with a dramatic frame-up, but with a slow, administrative poison, auditing the digital footprint of the penthouse. She was creating a context for the evidence she would plant. Amanda knew then that waiting was suicide. Brandy's questions would be traps. She needed her own evidence, her own leverage. It wasn't enough to have her attendance records. She needed to understand why. That night, long after the city's hum had settled into a deeper register, Amanda stood before the one place that was forbidden, the door to John's private office. Her heart was a frantic drum against her ribs. Brandy's plot was woven here, in the heart of his power. The truth was here. Her hand rose, hovering over the keypad. She had seen him enter the code once, his body blocking the view but his fingers moving in a distinct pattern. 4 taps. A birth date? She took a steadying breath and punched in the only date that felt sacred enough. 0427. The lock gave a soft, hydraulic hiss and disengaged. The door drifted open an inch, revealing darkness within. She had crossed the line. There was no going back. The hiss of the unlocking door was the loudest sound Amanda had ever heard. She stood frozen on the threshold, the inky darkness of John's private office yawning before her. The air that wafted out was different, colder, smelling of old leather, expensive paper, and him. She slipped inside, the door clicking shut behind her, sealing her in the lion's den. A single command from the voice-activated system would turn on the lights, so she used the faint glow from her phone, illuminating a path through the room. It was less an office and more a command center. One entire wall was a seamless bank of dark monitors. A monolithic desk of polished black wood stood in the center, utterly clean save for a single, framed photograph face down. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She wasn't here to steal. She was here to understand. She moved to the computer terminal. The same code, 0427, granted her access. Her stomach churned with guilt and fear. She was violating the one rule that had defined their professional existence. She bypassed the main drives, searching for the audit logs Brandy would be fabricating. She found them in a secured subfolder, but they were clean, routine. Brandy was too clever to keep the evidence here. Then, her eyes caught a different folder, simply labeled Y. Against every instinct screaming at her to stay on task, she opened it. It wasn't filled with syndicate business. It was a digital tomb. Pictures of a stunning Korean woman with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, Yuna. News articles about a merger between two powerful families. And then, a scanned, handwritten note, the ink blurred in places. Tonight, at the wedding pavilion. He trusts me. It will be finished. Amanda's hand flew to her mouth. This was the betrayal. The engagement that had been a trap. John had discovered it. The file timestamps showed, mere hours before the ceremony. The subsequent police report, heavily redacted, detailed an armed incident at the venue. John's injuries were listed. The scars she'd seen glimpses of had a name, a date, a face. This was the wound Brandy was prodding. This was why a late-night library trip could morph, in his traumatized mind, into a conspiracy. A soft creak from the penthouse's main living area snapped her head up. Someone was here. Panic, sharp and metallic, flooded her mouth. She closed the files, wiped the login history as best she could, and ducked behind the massive desk just as the office door whispered open. Through the narrow gap between the desk and the floor, she saw a pair of sleek, feminine dress shoes stop just inside the room. Brandy. Amanda held her breath, her body coiled tight. She watched as Brandy moved with practiced efficiency, not to the computer, but to a small vent panel beneath the window. She pried it open with a tool from her pocket, retrieved a small, duplicate black flash drive, and slotted it into a hidden port inside the duct. She then placed an identical drive into the pocket of her blazer. The frame-up was happening in real time. Brandy was planting the physical evidence of treason in John's own sanctum, while carrying the discovered duplicate to present to him. As Brandy turned to leave, her phone lit up her face in the dark. She spoke in a hushed, urgent whisper. It's done. The drive is in his system, linked to the Matthews girl. He'll find it during the audit tomorrow. No. He's still soft. He looks at her and he sees a ghost. It makes him weak. Once he condemns her, the syndicate will see his judgment is compromised. The vote for new leadership will follow. Be ready in Philadelphia. The call ended. Brandy smoothed her jacket and left, the door closing behind her. Amanda remained behind the desk for a full 5 minutes, trembling. She had the truth. She had heard the conspiracy. But she was a housekeeper who had broken into her boss's office. Her word against Brandy's was nothing. She needed the drive. Crawling out, she went to the vent. The drive was there, plugged into a hidden terminal. If she took it, Brandy would know someone was onto her. If she left it, John would find it and believe the lie. Her fingers hovered over the cold metal. Then, she made a choice. She pulled out her phone, not to take the drive, but to take a photo, a time-stamped, geotagged picture of the drive in the vent, with Brandy's partial reflection caught in the polished surface of the desk. It was a piece of the puzzle, but not enough. She needed more. And as she turned to sneak back out, her foot caught the leg of a side table. A heavy, crystal decanter wobbled with a clear, resonant ping that echoed like a gunshot in the silent room. From the hallway outside, the footsteps that had been fading away suddenly stopped. The crystal ping seemed to hang in the air forever. Amanda froze, her blood turning to ice. In the perfect silence of the penthouse, the sound was a cannon shot. The footsteps in the hall didn't just stop, they reversed. They were slow, deliberate, coming back toward the office. There was no time to hide the phone, no time to close the vent. Heart hammering against her ribs, She did the only thing she could think of. She grabbed the heavy textbook from her bag, which she'd brought in with her, and stood up from behind the desk just as the office door opened. It wasn't Brandy. It was John. He filled the doorway, his expression shifting from alert suspicion to stunned, volcanic disbelief. His eyes scanned the scene, her in his forbidden space, the vent panel slightly ajar, the glow of the hidden terminal inside it casting a faint light on her guilty face. "What," he said, the word lethally quiet, "are you doing in here?" All of Amanda's prepared defenses vanished. The raw hurt in his eyes, the betrayal that was so much more personal than business, stole her breath. This wasn't about syndicate rules. This was about the one line she had promised never to cross. "John, I can explain." "You can explain." He took a step into the room, and the air crackled with a dangerous new energy. It wasn't just anger. It was pain. "You can explain why you're in the one place I forbade you? Why you're lurking in the dark?" His gaze flicked to the vent. "What did you take?" "I didn't take anything," she insisted, her voice trembling. "I came to find proof." "Proof of what?" he snarled, closing the distance. He was close enough now that she could see the furious pulse in his throat, smell the night air and leather on him. "Proof that I'm a monster? Proof to sell to my enemies? Proof that Brandy is setting me up?" The words burst out of her, desperate and loud in the confined space. John went perfectly still. For a moment, the only sound was their ragged breathing. "Brandy," he repeated, his voice dangerously flat. "My second in command. Who has been loyal for a decade. You expect me to believe that?" "Yes." Amanda thrust her phone toward him, her hand shaking. The time-stamped photo was still on the screen. "Look, the vent. She planted a drive in there tonight. She's framing me to make you look weak, to take over." John took the phone, his eyes scanning the image. She saw the conflict raging in him. The boss who saw a fabricated image. The man who saw the desperation in her eyes. He looked from the phone to her face, his own a mask of torment. "And why," he whispered, his voice breaking with emotion, "would you be in here to discover this? Why would you risk everything? For a job? For money?" "No." The denial was ripped from her soul. All her pride, all her careful distance, crumbled in the face of his genuine confusion. "Because I couldn't stand you looking at me like I betrayed you. Because when you left the other night, I felt like I was losing something I never even had." The confession hung between them, naked and true. John stared at her, his harsh expression softening into one of stunned vulnerability. The armor of the Mafia boss cracked, revealing the wounded man beneath. He reached out, not in anger, but as if to touch her face, his fingers hovering just inches from her skin. The moment was shattered by the blaring ring of his secure line on the desk. The caller ID flashed, Brandy. The spell broke. John's hand dropped. The shutters came down over his eyes, but they were less certain now, filled with a new, agonizing doubt. He looked at the phone, then back at Amanda, her truth and Brandy's lie warring inside him. He answered the phone, his voice a controlled rasp. "Brandy." He listened, his eyes never leaving Amanda's. "Yes, I'm in the office now." A pause. His jaw tightened. "I see. Bring the audit findings to me. Immediately." He ended the call. The decision was upon him. He took a step closer to Amanda, his gaze intense, searching. "She says the audit found a data trail. That it leads here, to this room, and to you." He leaned in, his whisper a mix of threat and desperate plea. "You have until she walks through that door to make me believe you. Not with a photo. Make me believe." John's command was a threadbare bridge over a canyon of distrust. "Make me believe you." The distance between them was only a foot of charged air. Amanda saw it in his eyes, not the cold certainty of a boss pronouncing judgment, but the raw, vulnerable hope of a man who had been betrayed before and was terrified of feeling it again. He was giving her a chance. He was asking for one. She didn't reach for the phone with the photo. She didn't point to the vent. Instead, she held his gaze, letting him see every ounce of her fear and her truth. "You want proof that isn't a file? Look at me. Look at what I want." Her voice was a soft, trembling thread in the dark room. Do you think I spent nights on a bus to a community college, clinging to textbooks my mother could barely afford, just to play a long game against a man like you? I wanted a future. A real one. Not one bought with your diamonds or secured by your fear. She took a half-step closer, invading the space he had dominated. The proof is that I returned every gift. The proof is that I stayed in this gilded cage when I could have run. Because somewhere between your cold commands and the way you look at the city like it's a prison you built for yourself, I saw a man worth staying for, even if he couldn't see it himself. John's breath caught. Her words weren't a defense. They were an invasion. They bypassed the walls around his heart and struck the lonely core of him. Brandy's proof will be perfect, Amanda continued, her eyes glistening. It will make sense. My proof doesn't make sense. It's messy. It's a woman falling for the most dangerous man in Seoul while trying to remember she's more than his maid. What sounds more like the truth to you, John? A perfect lie, or an imperfect one? The elevator dinged in the distance. Brandy was here. A war raged across John's face. A lifetime of survival screamed at him to trust the evidence, the pattern, the ghost of Yuna. But his heart, so long silenced, thudded a single, rebellious beat for the woman standing before him, offering him not obedience, but her unvarnished soul. He made a choice. In one fluid motion, he grabbed Amanda's hand. His touch was electric, firm, and final. He pulled her toward the vent. Show me. Quickly. Her heart soared even as panic spiked. She pointed to the slightly open panel. In there. A drive, connected to a hidden port. She put it there less than 10 minutes ago. John didn't hesitate. He pried the panel fully open, saw the sleek black device blinking with a tiny red light. He didn't remove it. He pulled out his own phone, took several rapid pictures and a video, documenting its location in the infrastructure of his office. The main penthouse door opened. Brandy's crisp footsteps approached down the hall. John turned back to Amanda. There was no time. He did the only thing he could think of to sell the scene. He wrapped one arm around her waist, pulling her firmly against him, and with his other hand, he gently tipped her chin up. His dark eyes held hers, a silent question and an apology. Then he lowered his mouth to hers. It was not a gentle kiss. It was a claiming, a confession, and a desperate performance all at once. It was heat and shock and 1,000 unsaid things finally speaking. Amanda melted into it, her hands coming up to clutch his shirt, the textbook falling forgotten to the floor. In that moment, every lie, every danger, fell away. There was only the shocking rightness of his mouth on hers, the feel of his tattoos under her fingertips, the low groan that vibrated from his chest into hers. The office door opened. They broke apart, both breathing raggedly. Brandy stood frozen in the doorway, a tablet in her hand, her cold composure shattered into pure, unguarded shock. John kept his arm around Amanda's waist, holding her close to his side. His voice was rough, but his gaze on Brandy was arctic. You're interrupting, Brandy. Brandy's eyes darted from John's possessive hold to Amanda's flushed face, to the fallen textbook, and finally to the open vent panel behind them. Her carefully constructed narrative of a traitress made crumbled in the face of a far more dangerous story, a boss in love. She recovered quickly, a tight smile stretching her lips. My apologies, John. The audit results, they're quite urgent. She held up the tablet, her eyes glinting with a new, calculated malice. They show a data breach, originating from this room. Tonight. She looked directly at Amanda, the smile turning venomous. I'm afraid your distraction has a very specific digital fingerprint. One that leads straight to the Kim Jae gang. The trap was still sprung, but the game had irrevocably changed. The air in the office, still warm from the shock of the kiss, turned to frost. Brandy held the tablet aloft like a prosecutor presenting incontrovertible evidence. The digital fingerprint, the link to the rival Kim Jae gang. It was the final, perfect piece of her frame. Amanda felt John's arm tighten around her waist, a possessive anchor. He didn't look at the tablet. His gaze remained locked on Brandy, but the quality of his attention had shifted. The conflict was gone. Seeing her shock, her quick recalculation, had been the final proof he needed. This wasn't about evidence. It was about the source. A data breach, John repeated, his voice deceptively calm. He gently disentangled himself from Amanda, taking a deliberate step toward Brandy. From this room. Tonight. The timestamps are precise, Brandy affirmed, her confidence returning as she fell back on her fabricated data. It coincides with the subject's unauthorized presence here. She couldn't keep the slight, triumphant sneer from her voice as she glanced at Amanda. John stopped an arm's length away. He reached out, not for the tablet, but to gently take Brandy's wrist. His touch was not violent, but it was absolute. "Show me the originating terminal ID," he said softly. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Brandy's face. "It's in the summary, John. The main system terminal." She tried to gesture with the tablet. "The ID, Brandy." His voice dropped, a quiet rumble of impending storm. "Read it to me." The command brooked no refusal. Swallowing, Brandy looked down, scrolling with her free hand. It's terminal signature Alpha 7. The primary desk unit. John nodded slowly. Then, still holding her wrist, he turned and pointed with his other hand to the open vent. "And that? The secondary maintenance terminal in the climate control duct. The one with the active, physical data drive plugged into it right now. What is its signature?" Brandy's face went ashen. She hadn't expected him to know. Her eyes widened in pure, undiluted fear. That's a non-networked backup line, it wouldn't." "Omega-3, John stated, cutting her off. His fingers tightened on her wrist. "The drive you planted, Brandy. The one broadcasting a Kim J signal right now. The one whose physical location I have documented in photos and video on my phone." He leaned in, his whisper terrifying in its intimacy. "You tried to use my past to poison my future. You tried to take from me the only real thing I've found in 5 years." He released her wrist as if she were contaminated. "Alpha 7, he said, his voice now ringing with clear authority through the room. "Run a diagnostic. Now." A male voice, belonging to a tech specialist evidently on standby, came through the tablet speaker. "Running. Boss. Terminal Alpha 7 has been in hibernation mode since 10 p.m. No data outflows. Zero activity." The silence was absolute. The lie was undone. John looked at Amanda, his eyes holding a universe of apology and awe. She had been telling the truth. Her proof was her stubborn heart, and it had been enough. He turned his deadly focus back to Brandy. "You're finished." Panic ignited in Brandy's eyes. The cold strategist vanished, replaced by a cornered animal. In a flash of movement, she dropped the tablet and drew a small, ceramic pistol from a hidden holster at her back. But she didn't aim at John. She swung it toward Amanda. "If I'm finished, then your precious future dies with me." Time slowed. John moved, but he was a step too far away. Amanda didn't freeze. Driven by a survival instinct forged in hardship, she didn't cower. She grabbed the only thing within reach, the heavy crystal decanter that had almost betrayed her earlier. With a cry of pure defiance, she hurled it. It wasn't a perfect shot. It didn't strike Brandy's head, but it smashed into her outstretched arm. The gun fired, the bullet ricocheting off the steel door frame with a deafening spang. The decanter shattered, soaking Brandy in liquor and stunning her. It was the split second John needed. He closed the distance, his movement a blur of lethal grace. He disarmed her with a brutal twist of her wrist, the gun clattering away, and in the same motion, he slammed her against the wall, his forearm against her throat. Breathless, Amanda stared at the scene. John, a portrait of controlled fury pinning his former lieutenant, the shattered crystal at their feet. The immediate threat was over, but the emotional battlefield was just beginning. John's eyes found Amanda over Brandy's shoulder. In them, she saw the last of his walls crumble, not into weakness, but into a terrifying, beautiful clarity. The danger was still real, but in that look, he promised her something more powerful than safety. He promised her everything. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more episodes. We'd love to hear from you. Comment below and let us know where you're watching from. Stay tuned for more thrilling, romantic stories coming your way. See you in the next one.